do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft star that shines at night. I do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Don't weep for me, Anonymous.
Good evening, Undertakers. Welcome to the Empty Casket Podcast. I am Tanya Gilroy, and this is Bill Bryant. And tonight we take you on our investigation of the 44th Cemetery in 44, Pennsylvania. But first, some housekeeping.
So anyone who listened to our little, We're Back podcast, that was about 20 minutes last week, probably knows most of this. But we just did The Conjuring House. And I am going back this coming Friday and Saturday. So our next podcast will be on The Conjuring. That was a fun night. That was a whole fun trip.
Yes, it was.
But coming up on July 24th, we have the Shawnee Cemetery, which we have done once before. So when we do that podcast, we'll do both of those trips at once.
But this time it's with me.
Yeah, the first one with me and Quaylen. August 2nd, we have Penhurst Asylum down in Spring City, Pennsylvania. This is going to be an exciting one. We'll be there with Brian and Sylvia, who you'll remember from our White Hill Mansion episode. August 21st, we're going to be at the Scranton Cultural Center again. This time, it starts with a lecture and a tour of a traveling paranormal exhibit. It's with Cody Ray Desbines and Satori Hawes. Satori is the daughter of Jason Hawes, who is from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Nation, and together they have a traveling exhibit, the Paranormal Couple's Haunted Museum of Objects, Oddities, and Curiosities.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, I can't wait for that. That's going to be so much fun.
And we get to do an investigation with them.
Yep. And then on August 27th, we have the Palmyra Historical Museum in Palmyra, New York.
And we also have another event in July. We're going to be doing the Hanover Green Cemetery. That's July 30th.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
And that's one I'm really excited about.
So if you listen to the last podcast, I said that this podcast was going to be the Albright Library and the 44th Cemetery. Well, things have changed a little. We both have a lot going on right now. And to kind of make time for all this, we decided to, instead of doing a podcast on every investigation we do, we're just going to do them on the ones that have really big things happen. And then we'll save all the smaller ones for another time when we have time to do them.
Yeah, we may have a down period or something.
Yep. So the Albright Library, while it was a fun night, was a little lackluster compared to some of the others we've done.
Mm-hmm.
But the 44th Cemetery was
awesome.
So awesome. So we are going to do the 44th Cemetery tonight. Now, normally at this point, we give you the history. Well, it's a cemetery. There's not a whole lot of history to give.
I want to say it dates back to the 1700s. I think that's one of the oldest graves. But some fun facts about the 44th Cemetery is that during the Agnes flood, which really destroyed our area back in the 70s, a lot of the graves were literally uprooted. I believe they said they even found bodies in the trees.
Yeah. There was a terrible, terrible flood that hit our area.
But that cemetery got horrifically affected by that flood.
Yeah, over 1,400 burial vaults, caskets, and remains were recovered after the flood, some of which never got recovered. And they used the old meeting house, which is on the property, as kind of a makeshift morgue, as they would, collect the bodies and they'd place them in there, and before they can go and get reburied.
But I mean, the cemetery itself houses a lot of the areas, a lot of families that are from the area that built businesses and kind of created the localities and built them up over the last few decades.
So this was supposed to be another one of our Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours events with our friends John and Carrie Ann. However, we got there quite a bit early.
Yeah, we actually went a few hours early to get some pictures.
Yep, and to set up an experiment.
Which I believe you posted.
Yes. Yep.
And we did our, like you said, our experiment again. And the experiments that we do, that we are doing mainly in cemeteries, especially since we know that we're going to be in different groups, possibly with strangers, we take a piece of paper, kind of just meditate, and just think of a word. Doesn't have to be anything special. It just, whatever the first word pops into our head.
In this case, it was potato.
It was potato. You fold it up, you weigh it down, and then we take dowsing rods.
Well, we hide it at a tombstone.
Well, yeah, but we take dowsing rods and we kind of ask to be directed towards an area. However, in this case, I was automatically drawn to one particular area, and it was a gravestone of a little girl, a 7-year-old child named Carol. And it was a beautiful grave, and there's pictures on our Instagram of this gravesite. And it was kind of like it was mainly like kind of in the middle of the cemetery, so I assumed that we would probably be around that area during the tour. So we told the spirit, we said, we spoke it out, this isn't an experiment we want to do. We want to play a game. Can you tell the other members of our team where to find this? Can you say your names or say what's on the paper or direct them to where this is hidden? And we hid it and we went about our business.
Right. Yep. So we walked around for a while because it is a beautiful cemetery.
And we meditated on it too.
We meditated and then people started showing up.
Real quick, didn't you say that when you were meditating?
I felt the presence over in that area.
You felt more drawn to that area.
Mm-hmm. I think that was before we even placed.
No, that was after.
Was it after?
Yeah, because we were just kind of separated and we kind of walked around and just did our own thing for a little bit.
So everyone starts showing up. We go and talk to John and Carrie Ann and get signed in and all that. And we're waiting for the curator of the cemetery to show up.
And waiting.
And waiting.
And waiting.
And waiting. He's not answering his phone. He's not showing up, which is unlike him. And so we were rightfully worried about, his safety and all that, because he's an older gentleman.
And mind you, without this curator, which we come to find out, there really would not be much of a tour because this guy is a plethora of knowledge.
Yep.
It's not that he just had the keys to the house. He can tell you probably every ounce of history for every grave there is. Yeah. It was amazing. But unfortunately, John and Carrie Ann, they have limited history on that cemetery.
Right. So rather than give us a half event, they opted to cancel the event. So we went up to them afterward and said, well, we're here. We're going to investigate the cemetery anyway. And invited them to come along with us. And so they said, well, we're going to go check on Matt, who's the curator. And then we'll be back. Okay. So me, Tanya and our friend Rachel, who were there, we go out into the cemetery to do some investigations. We stopped at a couple graves along the way. Didn't get a whole lot. We tried to do some EVPs, but we're close to an airport, and this was like 8 o'clock next to a busy road, so EVPs just was not going to happen.
Yeah, EVPs are pretty hard. I mean, it's consistent traffic.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we have Rachel there. She did this tour already, so she kind of had a little knowledge of the different graves that they took on the previous tour.
Yeah, and there was one in particular she wanted to go back to, the Palmer grave. And it was on the far side of the cemetery, so we go down there. Now, some of the history of the Palmers. This was a family that was tragically killed by a fire in a theater in Chicago. For whatever reason, during the showing in this theater, they locked the doors. And a fire broke out. Nobody was able to get out of the theater, and everybody died. So their bodies, since they were from 40 Fort, ended up getting shipped back. They got buried back at home. So,
and I think what killed them mainly, I believe what Matt said was smoke
inhalation.
Whatever they were doing on stage, it exploded from the stage on or whatever, and
right.
It was just a ton of smoke in a small area.
Yeah, and it was the parents, twin girls, and a small boy, if I remember correctly.
I thought it was just two boys and a girl.
No, there's twins. There were 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, as we usually do, Tanya went under the Estes method. So she sat. So there was a larger monument, and then the 5 footstones. So Tanya went and sat at the larger monument. Rachel and I went to the far side of the trail across from it. So there's no way Tanya could hear us, and we started. So we asked, "Is William there?" William was the name of the little boy. Now, a little more backstory. When Rachel was there the first time, she felt like William followed her home, and she had some activity in her house for a couple days after the investigation, and then it just kind of petered out. So we decided to start it with William. So, is William here? And you said, "How are you? Are you part of the Palmer family?" He said, "Michael, do you hear us?" "Yes, we can hear you." "In the ground. Terrible. Can you tell us what killed you?" "Hold me. It was painful." So, in the ground, terrible, it was painful. These all line up so far. I mean, this was one of our better Estes Method sessions, and we're not even at the good stuff yet. So you said, "Elizabeth, wake up." Yes. Who was Elizabeth? And then we got an EVP. There was a quiet moment, and after I asked who was Elizabeth, we get this EVP. So what we hear is, "Please find me."
And it sounds like a little girl.
It sounds like a little girl. And it's a phrase that pops up several more times throughout the night. Not in EVPs, but in other ways. We're assuming at this point that it was Caro, the little girl who we left the note with, trying to get us to go find her.
And I feel like throughout this Estes Method, looking back on it, I think she had a lot to do with speaking.
She had a lot to do with the whole night.
Yeah. I believe a lot of things what we experience with the quote-unquote children could possibly be more her than the Palmers.
And then you said 34. And, we asked, well, what's the significance of 34? Which we still don't know what the significance was. And you said, "We're all here." Which we assume means the whole family's there. Then you said, "Hi, Rachel. "Hi, Bill." So you call this out by name, which freaked Rachel out a little bit because she's not used to that. I'm getting very used to it. So then you said, "Pick it up." Well, what should we pick up? The rabbit. Now, we have a new piece of gear that we brought with us on this. We have a little stuffed bunny, like a stuffed animal rabbit, that we put a K2 meter inside of. So, if something were to pick it up, the lights would light up the belly area of the bunny. And we had the bunny sitting on William's grave. Or, I'm sorry, Howard Palmer's grave. Howard was the child, not William.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my notes were a little off. And then you said, "Lord help me, I failed them." I said, "No, you didn't fail them." "How?" "It was a tragedy. There was nothing you could have done. I'm hurt, burnt." And he said, "Well, the fire can't hurt you anymore. You can move on." "Well, how?" You asked how. And that hurt a little bit because I don't know. I don't know if you can move people on. I didn't know what to say at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So all I could say was, I can't answer that for you. That's up for you to figure out. And you said, "I ran for my life." And then you saw a flash of the name Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, I just saw the name Katie flash in front of me. Well, Katie was one of the daughters.
Which, if you don't know, in the Estes method, I believe we spoke about this before, you don't always just get auditory.
Nope.
You get visual.
Yeah, sometimes.
Which will come to play soon.
Yeah. Out of all the times I've done the Estes method, only once did I ever get a visual, and that was at The Conjuring.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that the next episode.
Yeah, we don't want to jump too far ahead.
So you said, "Try to get them out," or "tried to help them out." And that's where, you said you were starting to get some goosebumps and that something was shifting. Then you said, "We are here." Which at the time we thought meant that the family, the Palmers, were here. Now that takes on a whole different meaning.
Well, we'll get there.
We'll
Continue.
get there. And then you said eerie or eerily. I mean, I'm hearing eerie or eerily. Again, that will come up later. So I asked, "Is there a reason you wanted us to pick up the rabbit?" You said, "You wake me up." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't mean to wake you up. We just wanted to talk." You said, "Go down to the grave." Well, which grave? Carly. Now, Carly is not the name of any of the graves around us because I checked.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who Carly was meant to be.
And I will say, and I believe I told you this, but I did not say it out loud. Potato popped up
Here?
multiple times. Yes, in the
I know in the meeting house that happened.
in the meeting house, but it also popped up.
Oh, you didn't mention
yes,
that.
I did. In the beginning, potato, the word potato was coming up, and I did not want to say it because obviously Rachel had no idea. Like, Rachel was informed that we did this, and we kind of wanted to have her.
Right, she knew that we did it. She didn't know the word.
What
she
we
didn't
did
know,
or where we hit it. So we were just kind of keeping that to ourselves. But yeah, I did mention that it popped up.
I don't remember that.
This was an eventful night. So
It was a very eventful night. And then you said, "Find the girl," which we assume meant Carol Dixon, which was the little girl. "We are all here. We are all here." Yeah. So I said, "Well, what are we looking for?" He said, "Hold it." And that's at this point I decided to shift towards the paper and Carol. And so I said, "So early today we hit a piece of paper next to a grave. Can you?" And you interrupted me and said, "Find the girl."
Mm-hmm.
Again, we assume it's Carol. So I continued my sentence. "Can you tell us the name on the grave or the word on the paper?" And you said, "I'm hearing the name. They're saying the name. I don't want to say it out loud, but they're saying the name."
Yeah, and they were. They were saying Carol. Not the last name, but Carol.
And then you said, Mommy. And I said, Howard, if that's you, can you play with this bunny? At this point, I had put the bunny back down on the grave. And you said, Mr. Mooney. Oh, are you naming the rabbit? Mr. Mooney. Is Mr. Mooney the name of the rabbit? The girl knows. Pick up the bunny. And I said, you can pick it up. It's okay. And you shouted, Mooney. Like a really excited kind of like a child's excitement when he gets a new toy. And you said, can I hold it? I said, go right ahead. You can hold it. And you said, you can hold it. And then you asked, is it magic? Which I assume, again, that it had, and the main power light is shining through its stomach. I'm like, no, it's not.
And for that time frame,
that
stuff doesn't exist.
Right. So I said, no, it's not magic, but the light will change colors if you pick it up. And then you said, come find me, which is, the same as the EVP we got. This was fun. So I asked, are we playing hide and seek? And you said, I'm hiding over here. Where? Look up. And I asked, are you in the tree? And you said, in the tree branches. Now keep in mind, she has the spirit box going, sound isolation headphones on, and we're standing a good 25, 30 feet away.
Oh, yeah. And
she cannot hear us. Yeah, there's traffic. We're
traffic.
Close to the road at this point. There's no way she can hear us. None whatsoever. And this is all just lining up perfectly. And somehow, we completely glossed over the fact that a spirit named Mr. Mooney. So the rabbit now is permanently called Mr. Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be bringing Mr. Mooney to the Conjuring House this Friday. So then you heard singing.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Robert and Burnt. And Robert was the name of the father. So I said, well, you're safe now. And then you said you were seeing hands in front of your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now it gets fun.
Yeah, it's going to get intense.
I'll let you explain it, and then I will give my version.
Okay.
So.
All right. So from my side, you said, who are you? I said, I'm Bill. And then Rachel introduced herself. I said, who are you? And you said, we are the Advocates. We have been watching you, beam you up, bring you up. My very first thought was aliens. And we were filming this. So you can see on the film that I immediately looked up. I'm looking for a weird light in the sky. I'm expecting there to be a UFO. And this was pretty much towards the end. So, I said, we need to go now. Because John and Carrie Ann were back. They had called me and said they were back at the meeting house, and we were going to go meet them. And I started to say, you are welcome to, and you interrupted and you said, I see a lake. So I continued with what I was saying. You are welcome to walk with us while we're here, but you must stay in the cemetery. You cannot go home with us. Do you have any final words before we leave? Nothing. So I said, okay, we're going to pack up now and leave. And you said, bring you to the lake. And then I came over to you, and I touched your arm to pull you out of the SS method. Normally, Tanya jumps a little bit. On a rare occasion, she'll squeak. She screamed, like bloody murder screamed when I touched her arm. And she just looked up at me. Her eyes were watering, and she said, I saw a goddamn gray.
So, my version, as everything was going, speaking to what we assume were the Palmers, or whatever spirits were there, and then all of a sudden, And now, mind you, I can't hear Bill or Rachel. I can hear muffling sometimes. So when there's quiet moments, I can hear. I can know that they're speaking, but I can't hear you. I can't.
Yeah, it almost sounds kind of like a murmur.
Yeah, like maybe I can differentiate between you and her, but I can't.
You can't hear individual words.
Yeah, and that's only in spaces of silence or quietness,
which we weren't getting a whole lot of.
No, but there was a few. So all of a sudden, I felt like all that kind of erased. Like you, Rachel, the spirits, all that kind of got pushed into the background. And then I opened my eyes in the blindfold. And I can't see anything. So when you obviously have a blindfold on, you see dark. You see black. And from that darkness, an image was approaching. It literally like stepped from the dark as if the dark was a void and walked up to my face. And at first, my brain, being the logical thing it is, assumed it was my eyes adjusting because I'm probably still getting some types of fragments of light. And it took the shape of what we call grays. That almond-shaped head, those big black eyes, which you have the background black, and then the image itself was another shade, a darker shade of black. And then the eyes were the blackest, and they were like glistening. And I can still hear way, way, way in the distance Bill and Rachel. But this thing was holding my attention. And I don't know if it was talking to you, because I was asking questions in my head. And that's when it said, "We are the advocates. We are watching you." And I know in my head, I said, "What do you want?" I'm listening, things like that. And it said, "Beam you up." And I always tell Bill, I joke around, but I'm semi-serious. What do I want? I want to get abducted. And immediately in my head, no, I'm not repeating this. I didn't say this out loud. I'm talking to this thing saying, "Give me the coordinates." And I don't know why I'm asking for coordinates. Like, I don't know that stuff. I'm not. It's so odd.
I would ask for coordinates.
And I think
you would not.
Maybe I think that's
just
why.
That phrasing is so odd for you.
I'm thinking that's probably why I said it. Because I know if you got numbers, you would be, I'd be like, "Bill, put these in," and
I'd be able to find that.
You'd be able to find it. And that's when it flashed me a picture of a lake. I'm assuming it's a lake. All I saw was kind of like a grassy knoll and water. There was not really any land. There was no islands on it. And it was not still water, but it wasn't like an ocean. So there wasn't consistent waves, but there was some shifts, but nothing that would indicate that's an ocean. It was definitely a large body of fresh water. And like I said, there was no islands. There was nothing that I could be like, okay, I know where this is at. It was just a body of water, and it felt like there was a grassy knoll up to it, like where then it would go flat so you can see the water. And I was kind of like on that edge. And it flashed it twice.
So I tried having Tanya explain the lake to me, because I'm familiar with a lot of the bigger lakes around here. I do a lot of fishing, and I didn't recognize at all what you were describing. When I was putting this transcript together, it dawned on me, one of the few things that came through that just were completely random and didn't have any bearing on what we were talking about was the word Erie. So I'm like, all right, Lake Erie? So I jump onto Google Images, and I search for Lake Erie, and one of the pictures, I think it was the second picture, was a grassy knoll going up to the lake, and then nothing in the distance. So screenshotted it, sent it to you, and the text I get back was, "Holy shit, where did you find that? That's the lake."
It was, I don't want to say 100%, but it was very close. I would say I'm 90%. Only because the image that you showed me, there was a little bit of land in the peripherals, but
But I think it was
I
more because it
explained
was
to you
taken
how
from
I
an
was.
angle.
It was taken from an angle. How I saw it was more direct,
Yeah.
more directly onward. So it was probably the closest thing we could have.
Now, there
Come along.
are, we looked this up afterwards. There's a lot of UFO activity around Lake Erie.
Yeah, that's something we didn't know.
It's a very large, deep lake. As we've been seeing with a lot of the footage that the government's been putting out lately, most of the UFOs that they have are over water, and there's even a few videos of them going in and out of the water. The USOs, unidentified submersible object. So, I mean, it would make sense that there could be a UFO at the bottom of Lake Erie.
Basically, when I come upon it, I will know.
Yeah.
The day I walk into that, it's like kind of like when you have deja vu. When it happens, you're like, I've done this before. I know the day will come when I will be in that position, and then you will. I don't know what I'll do. I hope that you're with me and my kids, because we're all getting abducted together.
I'm honestly terrified to take you to Lake Erie.
I am terrified, and I think we're probably going to be playing soon.
Well, just to jump ahead a little bit to play off that terrified notion. So we went to the cemetery together. We went back to your house so that you could get your car, because we were going to come up to my house to spend the night, and then you had to go to work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
The road we're taking from your house to my house is the same road that we saw a UFO on.
And it's country road.
And it's backcountry roads. We're on the phone with each other the entire way because we're both terrified of what could possibly happen.
I don't think I blinked. And
the worst part about it was there's a dead zone.
There's dead zones.
There's one large dead zone in that ride. And it's right next to the lake. We drive right past the lake. That's the dead zone.
No, it's around that corner too.
Well, it starts at that corner and then goes up to the lake.
It depends.
It's right after the lake we get the phone back.
It depends on where. Sometimes it doesn't hit all the way. Sometimes it doesn't hit at all. Sometimes it hits immediately.
Well,
usually mine, it hits right around that bend.
Yeah, mine's mostly right around that lake, but we have different carriers, so.
But yeah, that was terrifying. I was crying the whole way up, and then my heart palpitated when we passed the area where we saw that UFO. I'm like, they're gonna take me.
Every time I drive past that area,
They're
I look up for
following me now.
Oh, so yeah,
that was an intense ride.
It's an intense night.
We're
not even done yet.
No, but that was the first time that has ever happened to me, and when you brought me out of there, like I've been having issues. And when I first started doing the Estes method, it was amazing. It felt like you're a million miles away, and everything physically around you just is non-existent. And as I started doing it more, it didn't seem so distant. I don't know if I was because I'm shutting myself off or what. I do criticize myself a lot. And that night, and I think I even said it during, I'm not quite sure when I did say it to you, I felt like it was my first time again. It felt like how it was supposed to feel. So when you came and touched me, I thought they were, I don't know, I thought they were taking me away. Like, I was not expecting that. I'm shocked I didn't swing at you. And I was crying.
She was when she pulled the blindfold off.
I was goosebumped and shaken. It really, because that felt so real.
Yeah, so we're walking to the meeting house where we were going to meet John and Carrie Ann. They ended up meeting us halfway, and they said, "So, what do you guys do? Did you get anything?" And we're like, we contacted aliens. And John's just like, wait, what? Yeah, so we explained everything to them, and Matt was with them. He was fine. He had fallen asleep. He had come back with John and Carrie Ann to open up the meeting house for us and to give us some history, which he gave us a lot of history. He was a wealth of knowledge. Not a huge believer, but he was very interested in what we were doing.
He was open-minded.
Yeah. So we go into the meeting house. Now, this is an old, like, I think he said early 1800s meeting house. It was a meeting house. It was a church. They still had like the pulpit and everything in there. And it's also where they had laid out bodies during the Agnes flood. So we go in to investigate in there. And the first thing that John and Carrie Ann want to do is the human pendulum, which is something we witnessed for the first time at the Albright Library.
And something I'm very skeptical of.
Yeah, we were definitely skeptical of it. So when he asked, who wants to do it, I immediately said, I'll do it.
Yeah, because when we're at the Albright, we didn't participate in it.
We just
watched. Because, we've heard of it, but we never actually saw it played out before. And when we were at the Albright, I was asking Carrie Ann, how can we say this is not something that is, not saying that the person under or who is the human pendulum is purposely faking it, but how can we say that psychologically, maybe deep in their subconscious, they aren't swaying back and forth to these answers. They're not answering. They're answering for them, based off of their own minds.
Right. So we had suggested, well, let's put on the headphones, let's put on the blindfold. John was okay with us doing the headphones. He didn't want the blindfold just because if you can't see, then that kind of
your equilibrium.
It messes with your equilibrium, and you don't want to sway, falsely. Which I understand that.
And from what we witnessed, people look like they look like they're getting either pushed forward or backward.
That's what we've seen so
and I'm
far.
Like, okay, yeah, that can be like, I know me, I fidget so bad standing still.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just probably other people that you're nervous, you're anxious, you're excited, and your body's just reacting.
Yep, that was my opinion too, until I did it. So first question asked is, can you show us yes? And I got pushed backwards. Well, not so much pushed back. So it's such a weird feeling. It's
not a push. It's more like a.
It's like so for me, the way I described it was, it's as if somebody grabbed my chest from behind, like reached through me to grab the front of my chest and pulled me backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So like the pressure was definitely on the front of my chest, but it felt more like I was being pulled back as opposed to being pushed back.
Yeah, I think that's a good explanation of it.
And then asked for no, and I got pushed forward,
mm-hmm.
and like I felt the two mm-hmm. points of pressure pushing me forward. I'm like, okay, I'm not quite so skeptical on this anymore because I'm being touched as we do this.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the questions that got asked were, do you like having us here? Yes. Do you understand that we are just here to communicate? Yes. Do we have someone here that was buried and was disturbed during the flood? Yes. Are there a lot of you here? Yes. Are you sad about what happened? Yes. Is there always someone here watching? Yes. Do you think Matt has done a great job? Yes. So Matt was really happy to hear that mm-hmm. the spirits think he's doing a good job. And I do want to apologize for my dogs and my birds making all this noise in the background. They just won't shut up. We asked, are you someone we visited today? Yes. Did it have anything to do with the fire? That was a maybe. So I was kind of teetering back and forth. The way it felt to me was I was being pushed and pulled at the same time, mm-hmm. and I didn't know which way to let it go. It was a weird feeling. And another thing that I'll say is, at the beginning, it was a very strong push mm-hmm. or pull. And then as the session went on, it got weaker and weaker and weaker. Then asked, are you a child? That came and gave us another maybe. Are you not allowed to talk? Yes. Which, does that mean they are allowed to talk or not allowed to talk? That was a weird phrasing.
Yeah, I don't know. Mind you, I was not asking many questions. I was still shooken up that my mind was like literally blunted at that moment. So I was just standing by Bill's side in case he fell.
Do you need someone's permission? No. Are you uncomfortable talking about it? No. Were you burnt? Yes. Are you male? No. Are you female? Yes. Are you younger than 10? Yes. Is your last name Palmer? Yes. However, there was no female Palmer child at that age. So, I don't know.
So I go do the human pendulum, and I would say 100% skeptical on this. I really do think that it has a lot to do with mind over matter. But going under it and having done it myself, I will say you do get that feeling. And I used to be a ballet dancer. I know how to ground myself very well. And I root it myself down. I'm like, if I'm going to be pushed and pulled, my feet are going to be solid stone in the ground. Like, I'm going to be as rigid as possible. I got my balance. I stood hard. And I got pushed and...
Yeah, and the very first question, are we speaking to the same spirits? You went backwards for yes. And when you're backwards so far or so hard that you knocked everything over behind you.
Because it's not an investigation, it's a story and shit.
Keep in mind, like, it's at this point it's quiet.
Yeah, and we're
it's all wood inside, so every little bit of noise echoes, and she knocks over in the collection baskets that were behind her, and they fell over, and just huge noise. Go to White Hill, you knocked the wall down.
I know.
You did something at Mid Orange too to break something. What was it?
At White Hill, I almost knocked down her was it the SLS camera that she had going? I almost knocked something expensive down.
All right. So, are you part of the Palmer family? No. Are you part of the Lindsay family? No. Did we put something on your tombstone today? Yes. Do you know what we wrote on the paper? Yes. Can you tell Tanya what it is? Yes. So at this point, I'm struggling to come up with a way to ask the question that gives us a yes/no answer without giving away what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't think of anything. So I said, can you say it loudly in her ear? And you said that your left hand feels numb.
Oh, my left hand went like, I don't want to say pins and needles, but from the wrist down, it was such an odd sensation. And I was moving my hands and stuff, so it's not like...
Almost as if maybe
something was holding
child
it.
Spirit held your hand.
I think it was John who decided to plug in the...
It was John's idea to grab the SB7.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and grabbed it, turned it on, plugged it in, and immediately, like as soon as I plugged it in, you went, potato, potato.
So yeah, I heard, like, the second it was connected and ready to go, all I heard was potato, potato. And I'm like looking up, I'm like, should I say this? Like, what do I do? Because I have no idea what questions are being asked or anything. I have the headphones on. And I'm like, I think I looked at you. I'm like...
And I just shook my head.
Like,
and you're like,
I'm
potato.
Like, I think I was like
potato.
mouthing the words. Like, should I say this?
So I asked, can you say the name of the person on the tombstone? Not Palmer, which is true. And you said potato again. Can you give us the name? No. You said it before. Can you please say it again? No. And then you said, I'm right here. And then I asked how many times, because you wrote potato multiple times on that piece
Yeah,
of
I wrote it
paper.
multiple times, different.
And so I said, I'm going to ask a question that I don't know the answer to. How many times did Tanya write potato? Yeah, we didn't get the number.
No.
And then, once again, you said, come find me. And then, pull her forward. And then you asked, who are you? I'm Bill. Can you tell us how many times potatoes written on the paper? And you rocked backwards for no, and then said, Margaret. What's your last name? Said, on the high road. Then you said, I'm Marge, which is short for Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
So then we decided, well, let's try the Estes method. This time, Carrie Ann went under.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked it to say a few names. You know, can you say my name? Can you say Tiny's name? Can you say the name of the place that we left the note? Nothing. And then she said, wait. Wait for what? There's always someone. They're watching. Who's watching? At this point, because I'm thinking she's going to say the Advocates.
She said the Advocates again.
And she said Connie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, it's not the Advocates. So at this point, we're 100% in with, all right, we just want to get the name on the tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked, what's the name on the tombstone? Carrie Ann said, he's here. Who's here? Talk to him. Can you give us his name? Talk to him. Are you the one we're playing the game with? Are you hiding our paper for us? Yes. How old are you? Betty. What did you do? And then she said, burn up. Fast. Are we talking to one of the Palmers? Brother. Answer them. Do you need permission to talk to us? The head. The back. They're listening. Scalp. Scout. Can you tell us the year? I was going to ask the year that
Mm-hmm.
Carol died. She said, breathe. Name. Breathe. Your head. Now it's the men. Remember to breathe. And then she asked, you're living? I said, yes, we are living. Are you a child? You're living in your head. Does he know? So it was a lot of, like...
I think during her session, it felt like
more
there
than
was
one...
I think they were talking amongst themselves.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like there was more than one coming through.
Right,
And I think
and they were completely ignoring us.
Yeah.
They were talking amongst themselves.
I think it started where I ended, and she kind of continued it. Because you get things like Margaret. Connie was kind of close to Carol, though.
True.
I mean, not saying I know it's probably I'm reaching for something, but...
That's not the first time... Well, I'm sorry. That's the first, but it's not the last time we get
it gets
a name
something
that's close.
close. When you're under the Estes method, you're not, you're kind of guessing sometimes what you're hearing. And I say things like, I think I heard this, but it could have also been this.
Yeah, and, go on a little bit more with a lot of things that just really weren't pertinent. And then she said paranormal, which actually kind of made her
Laugh
a little bit.
chuckle.
And, several questions and answers later, none of which lined up. She said it's paranormal again.
And mind you, even though this is our first time doing 44, they've done, Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours has done 44 a multitude of times.
Mm-hmm.
They, something that we realize, especially like with John, his name comes up in a lot of things that we do with them. And they obviously have, some reputation, I should say.
Yep.
So I think when it's brought up paranormal.
Yeah, it could be referring to them.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, we are, after all, paranormal investigators.
Mm-hmm. So the last little bit actually did make sense.
Mm-hmm.
She said, come here. So John says, Bill, go closer to her. So I start walking towards Carrie Ann, and she says, someone's coming. And I said, that's right. And John said, keep going. And she said, you can't. And then I stepped on a squeaky floorboard, and it scared the crap out of Carrie Ann. She jumped out of the SS method. So then we're like, all right, well, let's try putting 2 people under at the same time. So
and the house was big enough to where we can kind of separate you guys.
It was a very large building. It was going to be John and Rachel. So we set them up. We put them on opposite ends of the building. As soon as the headphones went on to Rachel, she said the lake.
Mm-hmm. And she freaked out.
Yeah, she did not like it. I think this was her first time attempting it.
I believe so. She was always very scared of doing it. It seemed like, and it's not for everybody.
It's not.
I mean, and I have a feeling Rachel does have a lot of sensitivity, and therefore, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming my first time doing it.
So, John's already under. While Rachel freaked out, didn't want to do it, John's already under. So he says, on the stone, on the stone, on the stone. They take that, tell them about it, trust for him. And so I said, we want the name of the headstone. He said, look inside. How many spirits are here? And then I turned on my flashlight. And he said, don't do that again. Can you tell us how many people are here? And he said, put it back on. So I turned the flashlight back on. So we did want 2 people under. So I said, all right, well, I'll go under. Now, when I go under the SS method, I don't typically go as deep as you do, certainly not as quickly as you do. But it doesn't really frighten me. Like it, especially in Gettysburg, I definitely got that drifting off feeling. And this night, I got that drifting off feeling. But it wasn't scary the first time. This night, I was terrified. I was so afraid that I was going to take the blindfold off at one point and either not be in the meeting hall anymore, or there was going to be something non-human standing there over me that was taking us. Like, I was so terrified that we were going to get abducted while I'm under. But I powered through. I did it anyway.
You did a good job.
And I will say this. Initially, I was okay and started drifting off. But as that fear kept building, the more I was under, I felt myself closing off more. Because just that fear kind of got a hold of me.
Took you over.
Yeah.
But I think when you went under, there was a lot.
We got good stuff.
We got good stuff.
So you said, whoever is here can speak through John and Bill. And John said, don't ask me again. And I said, William, how are you? You asked, how many spirits are here? John said, 6. You said, how many living people are here? John said 6.
Mm-hmm.
And there were.
There were 6.
You, me, John, Carrie Ann,
and
Rachel, and Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked, where are you at? You asked, does the tombstone belong to a little boy or a little girl? And John said, you already know.
Which I did.
Yeah. Can you tell us how old the person is? John said, 7. And she was 7.
And I think this is probably the first time we got numbers.
Yeah, we almost never get numbers.
I mean, if we do, it's not really connected to anything.
No.
But that was actually very intelligent. It was, I'm asking for numbers. I'm getting a number response correctly. I can't tell you how many spirits were in that room.
Well,
but
so I was thinking about that. If they were, our spirits, there were 6 of us.
That's true.
Yeah. Then you asked, can you give us the name? And he said, Davidson. Carol's last name was Dixon. Another instance of close, but not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I felt something grab my right forearm.
And you say it.
I said it out loud. And I felt each individual finger around my right forearm. Like it reached around and grabbed my right forearm. Like I could feel it, and the hairs on my arm just grab onto me. And as
And
soon as I said that,
literally seconds.
John freaked out. What are you doing? Please stop. What the hell's going on? Something's grabbing my right arm.
And then I think we paused there for a second. We took a quick little break.
Yep. I pulled because I heard the commotion of John like freaking out that something was touching him, and I pulled the headphones.
And what
off.
I noticed is that, like, I mean, you were getting some things, but not as much as he was.
Yeah, he was getting a lot.
And he doesn't seem like the type that would take to that so quickly, but he does.
He does. Well, you know what? He's been doing it a long time.
Does.
They've been doing it for 15 years.
I think because I'm so used to seeing him as a host, and he asks questions, and usually it's the guests that are.
Yeah. Well, you know, we had that conversation with them after the Albright Library.
Mm-hmm.
So after we got done investigating the Albright Library, we all stepped outside together and we had this conversation. And both John and Carrie Ann said that they close off during the events because they're there as hosts.
Yeah,
they're not there as investigators. And they said that when they investigate, things are different. And they proved that this night.
Mm-hmm. They're amazing investigators.
They
I
really
learned
are.
a lot from them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
from being seasoned. They're very seasoned in what they do. And, but it was pretty cool to see. And it makes sense because that's, you know, kind of makes sense how open he is. Like, I don't think he knows how open he is.
No, I don't think so.
Or should I say receptive?
Yeah.
He's very receptive because from all of our
He's-
tours on with them, we get his name a lot, or we
All
get
the
things
time.
related to him.
Not in every investigation with them, but most.
Or like he'll come into the room and that's when activity starts.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem that they are very receptive to them.
Absolutely.
But anyways, going back, we took like a tour, make sure everyone wanted to continue on.
Yep. So we go back under, and you said, if there's a spirit by John, can you tap his shoulder? And he says, something just touched my neck. And then he said, I did that. And then you asked, if there's a spirit by Bill, can you tap his shoulder? And John said, I set him over here.
Yeah, and he was very like mean.
Yeah.
Like irritated. Like I
Yeah.
said I'm over here.
So at this point, we lost all audio. The recorder I had going, I had knocked over earlier and accidentally shut it off in the process of picking it back up.
That's what it is.
The camera battery died. Now, at this point, we were only doing another 5 minutes. Because the spirits were getting
But you did
agitated.
miss something. You said Carrie Ann's name.
That must have been after the audio cut out.
Yeah. And she said that
Oh, that's
freaked her out.
She's never gotten her name come through
She's
before.
been doing this for
15 years.
15 years, and she's never been called out by name. Now, in the Albright, I may have referenced her. I said something about a woman wearing a red shirt.
Mm-hmm, but you didn't say her
Never
name.
said her name. She was wearing a red shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But you said her name,
Yep.
Carrie Ann. And she was like, I guess that sent like chills down her spine because she's like, nothing has ever said my name before.
Yeah. John gets it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were only under maybe another 5 minutes after
Mm-hmm.
the audio cut out. And I don't remember everything that happened, and so we don't have the audio to finish up the transcript. What I do remember is that they seemed to be getting agitated. They were done with us.
Yeah, it felt like the spirits were just done.
Yeah.
And it felt like there were more than one.
Yep.
But they were just like, we're done with this. We're all said and done. And I think they even said something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think there was something that they were like, we're done now. We're all said and done. And John's like, yeah, I can't do this no more.
Yeah. And I was very happy to be done with it because I was so fearful at that point that I'm like, okay, I'm okay with not going back under. So we chatted a little bit about what had happened.
And we began to walk out.
Talk to Matt about what he thought of it because he's skeptical. He's been working at that cemetery for a very long time and hasn't really had any experiences there. But he was very intrigued by what we were doing. He was open to the possibility, and he said, there's some of the things that came through were, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't enough to make him a believer, but it was, he
It made him want to question and start researching. I think he was researching that whole night on his phone, like looking up certain things. And like I said, he is a
huge wealth
huge
of knowledge.
fountain. Oh my God, he.
Yeah, we ended up. We said, well, we don't want to leave the paper with the word potato here, so let's go get that.
Yeah.
So you, me, John, and Matt, we walked over.
Because now at this time we're stopping.
Yeah, we're done for the night. Because it's like 2 a.m. at this point.
Yeah.
We were supposed to have left by 11. It's 2 a.m.
And we're walking over, and I think I even said the name. Because
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I don't know where you're referring to. Let's just walk over.
Yeah. And so he gave us a little bit of the history of the family. They were a more prominent family.
Once we got over to that area, he kind of...
Yeah, he was a more prominent family in the area.
I'm not mistaken, they created the cemetery.
I believe so. At Wilkes University, the theater is named after them, and you were in theater.
Yep.
Not at Wilkes, but
I performed there though for my dance shows and stuff. I performed
did you?
I performed at that a few times, and I believe I also performed. I performed there theatrically through Joan Harris. I think they had one or two things through there for the theater, but as we're actually approaching the grave, he's like, you know what? He's like, I was just over here a few days ago.
And he was fascinated by Carol's grave.
Yeah, he's like, and I was actually looking at her grave. I was absolutely fascinated by her. And this was days before we even showed up. He's like, I was drawn to her grave. Mm-hmm. Just like I was originally drawn to her grave.
Now, I wasn't drawn to her grave specifically, but I was drawn to that area of the cemetery. So, early on in the evening, when we were waiting for the event to start before it got canceled, we're sitting there, and Tanya's picking little wildflowers, and she makes a flower crown that she wore the entire night. We get to Carol's grave, we pick up the paper, John's telling us about the family. Tanya takes the flower crown off, thanks Carol, and puts the crown on the headstone. And so Matt's talking and all this, and I'm looking at the gravestone, and I look at the flower crown, and all of a sudden, all I'm looking at is it's a sunny day. It's a little girl, blonde hair, in a dress, picking up the flower crown, putting it on, and just this big grin on her face.
And you'd be tearing up. It was so adorable.
I started to cry. Like it hit me. I'm tearing up right now just even talking about it. It hit me so hard. Like I had to step away. Mm-hmm. Like I immediately just turned and took a few steps away. I couldn't deal with that. And you even said, "Are you okay?" And
yeah.
So
I never seen you tear up before. I never seen you get like overly emotional.
No, that's not something that normally happens to me. Like I can get very emotional if I'm like overtired and things like that. But I wasn't tired. Like I was energized. I was like the adrenaline was pumping, but it was just I've never had a vision like that either. I'll tell you what's different. This investigation, as we're walking around beforehand, I felt like I needed to meditate. So I told Tanya, I said, look, you go walk around. I'm going to sit here and meditate and just try to open myself up more. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And I haven't done that before on an investigation. And I think that definitely helped open me up more, so I was more receptive to these things. And I think that may be part of the reason that I got hit so hard emotionally. But when I saw a vision that I'd never seen a vision before.
Maybe that's something we should be doing before investigations is meditating, taking a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of did a little bit in the Conjuring House. At least I did. Taking that moment and walking around.
When we did the silent portion, I did.
No, in the beginning. Like when we got
I didn't do it in the beginning.
I kind of just walked around and But another thing I realized, I'm a big cemetery freak. I love cemeteries, but
she does.
I don't need to go to every cemetery. There's just certain ones that call to me. The Shawnee Cemetery is my cemetery. I love that, and Bill can attest that you get a different sensation walking through there. It's not your normal cemetery. It's like walking into another world. The 44th Cemetery has that feel. It's very welcoming. It's not like you're walking through stones, or you're walking through memories and history. And
there are some cemeteries you walk into and it's just, well, this is a cemetery.
yeah,
and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
There are others you walk into and you're like, I'm walking back in time. This is history. This is...
And we had this discussion while we were in Salem, because we went to one of the historical cemeteries.
One of the oldest cemeteries in the country.
And I felt nothing. And I'm like, this is horrific. I'm in these tombstones are dating back like 1500s, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous and beautiful. And I'm like, I feel nothing here. It's like as if that connection was just, it's been
severed.
gone with, severed from the tourism, because it was crowded and there's people there.
I'll tell you what cemetery that I still had that feeling in. Swan Point Cemetery.
Yes.
In Providence, Rhode Island. We went to see H.P. Lovecraft's grave. That cemetery was amazing.
I can spend all day in that cemetery. Like, that cemetery was like the Shawnee Cemetery, but 10 times bigger. That would have been my whole... Like, if you said that's where we're going for my birthday, I would be like, okay. Knowing that what that place is now, I want to just go back to there. It was like my version of a playground. Like, I was finding little like little spots and like these little treasures. It was amazing. We'll talk about that more in the next podcast.
Yeah.
But my point is that the 44th Cemetery does have that, even though it's on a busy street. It's open, which is odd. It's open to the public. Mm-hmm. It's all night. Like, they don't close the gates or anything, which I was shocked. But you're welcome to go through there. Take your dog for a walk, take your bike. They welcome it.
There's a trail. So the dike is right behind it, and there's a trail on top. If you go down just another, 200 feet, there's a playground.
Mm-hmm. So, it's open to the public all 24/7.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So it has that flow of people, but it does have that specialness that, like, come, you're welcome, come learn our stories, come, you can easily get lost in thought there.
Easily, yeah. It's a very calming place. Mm-hmm. It's a very welcoming place, and you feel like you walk back in time.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love, is being able to walk back in time. I don't see there's some cemeteries where you think, this is a place of death and it's uniformity and there's nothing, nothing there. And then there's cemeteries where it's like you're literally walking through history. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yep. And I'll tell you this, ever since that investigation, I have not been able to get Carol off my mind. I
know, you said that. You've brought her up recently.
To this day, like, it's been, 3 weeks since we've been there?
Yeah. We should go back.
I still can't.
We should go back.
She pops up in my head almost every day.
I can't get Grays off my mind. That freaked me out. Yeah. But it's now bringing up new questions.
Yeah, so I have done some investigation. I can't find anything associated with aliens and the advocates. I've asked friends that are into it. I've reached out to the community. I've done some research. Nothing. So if anyone out there is listening and you have any kind of known connection between Grays and the advocates, please leave us a message, shoot us an email, whatever. Just please get a hold of us, because we are dying to find out who the advocates are.
And also, it's now bringing up other questions, because we have noticed that in a lot of these investigations, not all, but a lot, The Conjuring being one, there are UFO and Gray sightings.
Yeah. Well,
Mid-Orange
had a great... So, funny thing about this is I now work for Ghost Hunts USA. My first event with them was Mid-Orange. the night after 44th Cemetery. So I'm thinking, after all this stuff happened with the gray, like, oh, I just know I'm going to end up in A3 because A3 had the gray sighting in it. And I even saw the gray mist there the first time we were there. So we go and we meet up for dinner beforehand, and we're talking about, where everyone's going to go, where you're going to bring your group, what are we going to do. And I was being paired up with another trainee, Patrick, and first thing out of his mouth is, I want to go to A3. I'm like, I knew it.
And didn't you say, like, the investigators there caught something surrounding you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So so one of the people there that night, there were other paranormal investigators. They had, really good cameras with them. And if you go back and listen to that podcast, we talk about the red fireflies. Well, I had told them about it, and they captured on camera a red firefly going up one side of me, down the other, and out the door. And they followed it out the door. Brought the camera back to me, and they said that there was about a 7-foot tall figure standing behind me.
That's scary.
I asked them to send it to me. They haven't done it.
So if you're listening to this, people,
please
send it to us. But
so what really freaked me out about that was later on, I'm talking to one of the other Ghost Sons employees, Danelle. She was the one who saw the gray in A3. But it wasn't one of the short little grays.
It was the tall
It
grays.
was one of the tall, like 7-foot grays.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her about what happened at 44th. She's telling me about what she saw. We talking about Terry Lovelace and the fact that he had, like, he saw little grays. They were the workers. The tall grays were the ones in charge. And then the third Ghost Hunts employee comes into the room and says, "Look what we just captured in the meat locker in the mess hall." And it was a wet handprint on the ceiling. They're 12-foot tall ceilings. There's no way there's no ladders around or anything.
Nowhere.
There's no way anybody jumped. And then we had some tall people there, but they weren't jumping to 12 feet to put their wet hands on the ceiling. So I immediately looked at Danelle. She looked at me and she goes, "You're thinking what I'm thinking, right?" I said, "Yeah, the tall gray." I said, "Or the tall thing that was standing behind me that they captured on film." And she goes, "What if they're one and the same?" Mind blown.
Yeah.
Never even put those two together.
And that's something that we're now... We always believe that everything's linked up somehow. And I'm approaching it now, and this is something that we've been discussing. It seems like it's connecting. What if what we perceive as spirits or ghosts are just aliens trying to communicate or experimenting on us?
Psychologically.
A psychological experiment to see how we react, how our minds work in regards to possibly talking to our ancestors or quote-unquote ghosts.
So we spent Sunday evening discussing this. Today, at work, this is a Wednesday, at work, somebody asked me how The Conjuring went, and I was telling them about it. Somebody walking by heard what we were talking about and just randomly said, "Were you abducted by ghosts?" And I said, "Well, what would be worse, being abducted by ghosts or abducted by aliens?" And one of the girls I worked with immediately said, "Well, what if ghosts are aliens?" And I'm like, "You have got to be shitting me. You did not just ask that question." She goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I just had this conversation on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then you posted about it on the Astonishing Legends Facebook page, and a whole other discussion got opened up about it." It's like, that seems to be a bit more into that synchronicity realm.
Exactly. So we have an experiment that Bill will be doing.
Yep.
Next time he's in Mid-Orange. I'm not going to say it, but you will do it.
Yep.
And then we'll see how it goes.
And once we get results from it, we'll tell you all about it.
But I feel like I feel like there's something brewing. And how I told you, we as humans are more susceptible and more accepting to an idea of a spirit, or, because it's all through religion, it's all through culture. but we're not probably so receptive to the thought of extraterrestrials
Yep.
or other dimensional beings.
Well, and just before we
As a
recorded this podcast, we were watching an episode of
The
the
Hoser
Hoser
Files.
Files.
Just a random one.
Yep, Ancient Evil, I think it was called, and they showed a picture somebody took of an orb that they saw,
Yeah.
but then there's some other people in it, and behind those people was, they're like, oh look, there's a figure standing behind it. We looked at it and we both said, it's an alien. Like, it looks like a gray.
And this is Mystery Hill in Salem, New Hampshire. It is a stone structure that there is no reports. They have no idea who
made
built
it.
it. They believe it's thousands of years old. They have theories, but there's no confirmation. But throughout the episode, the one, I don't think he was a historian. I think he was a astronomer.
The
one, but he said, this lines up with constellations.
Oh, right,
This
yeah,
lines
okay.
up with the sun. This is obviously a structure made for astrological viewing.
There's a couple mile
An
long
observatory.
wall there that lines up with the constellation Draco.
Yeah, and he was saying this is an observatory. Well, if you watch Ancient Aliens and stuff like that, stuff like that has always been connected to outer space or extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
So something's happening.
Yep.
Don't know what it is yet, but I have a feeling it has to do with aliens. Maybe
Yep.
we'll get answers to who the advocates are.
I hope so. I hope I find out who the advocates are without getting abducted, because I'll tell you, my biggest fear as a child was being abducted by aliens. And all the work we've been doing, like doing the CE5 and going out and looking for UFOs and seeing that's UFO and researching it more, I thought I was over my fear because it wasn't frightening me anymore. But
Yeah.
then after this, at 44, all those fears came rushing back.
Well, I don't want to be
Oh
abducted by myself.
Oh,
I
I
have
was
to be,
scared.
but like I probably mentioned before, like I grew up, my grandmother telling me, let's hope the aliens abduct us. I want the aliens to abduct me. She used to basically pray that they come and heal her, and then therefore I was praying that they would come and take us and heal her, and
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine like playing on the spaceship, like that used to fascinate me.
Just another connection with between the ghosts and aliens. We went to Conjuring, and we're talking to the host Lori, and she goes, "Well, I hope the weather holds out because I want to go out to the circle of stones outside, and do something with UFOs." I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me! We're bringing UFOs in again?" And then afterwards, I'm talking to my boss, who has been there tons of times. And I had told him what happened at 44, and he goes, "Well, at Conjuring, did they tell you about the gray?" What? Yeah, in the basement, somebody saw a gray. You gotta be shitting me. For real? He goes, "Yeah, they see UFOs at that house all the time."
And the skyline, oh my God, it's gorgeous.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
That house is unbelievably beautiful.
So, but we're not going to try the experiment at the Conjuring because we're not. But you're going to definitely try the experiment at Mid-Orange.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we get results so we can, next time we're on here during the Conjuring, we'll bring it up and see what happens.
Yep.
We have a few experiments lined up. One for the Conjuring, but not the one that regards aliens.
Yeah, we have a whole lot of experiments lined up, some of which require new equipment to be made.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're hoping that it gets made in time for Pennhurst, but can't guarantee that.
So, with our next cemetery ones, we have Shawnee and Hanover Green.
Yep.
I believe we will probably are we gonna try to do our paper experiment again?
Oh, absolutely. In Shawnee though, we're gonna do it differently than the last time, because on my way down to pick you up, I'm gonna stop there and put something.
The first time at Shawnee, I showed him. I picked out a picture I had from my teenage years in that cemetery, and I went up by myself, and I just kind of allowed the spirits to guide me where to go, and I picked a grave and I put it there, and unfortunately you and Q did not pick up on that.
So this time I'm gonna do it. I'll stop there on the way, hide something, and then we'll see if you can find it. And that's at Hanover we'll do it again. Just we'll do it in 44.
yeah.
We'll show up early, do it together, and then see if other people can pick up on it.
All right, so I guess that's everything.
Yeah, we have a very busy couple months ahead of us.
You more so than me.
Yeah, I am investigating every weekend for the next 5 weeks. So we're going to try to get episodes out. I'm hoping every 2 to 3 weeks.
I hope so.
But if we go dark for a little bit, it's just because we're busy. Because on top of that, well, we have full-time jobs, and I'm building equipment and developing some new stuff, which we'll talk about when I actually, have it developed and it working.
And if you want to purchase equipment, you can go to our Etsy page.
www.etsy.com/shop/empty casket equipment.
And there's new stuff being put up there a lot.
Next week.
Yep, next week.
Yeah, so we have currently our IP pods, which are our pocket-sized REM pods, the Coffin 2s, which is our upgraded K2s, the Coffin pods that we talk about so often in this podcast, and what I have going up next week is electromagnetic microphones and electromagnetic speakers.
Which are the shape of urns.
Yep. We're just going to steer into the skid of the whole empty casket graveyard thing and just, yeah. But
Well, I guess that concludes this episode. So thank you for joining in.
And we'll speak to you next time.
Good night.
Have a good night.